My lords, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to OpenTTD, one of, in my opinion, the best tycoon simulator style games that has ever been created. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with Transport Tycoon Deluxe, and of course many of you will also be aware there is now an open source version of it which is available for free on Steam. And it is just a brilliant game to play. I mean, yes, as you can see, graphically it perhaps isn't the best. It's obviously got old style graphics, but that to me is just part of the charm. The true attraction of this game for me isn't the graphical strengths, it's the complexity that it offers and the massive, active, still to this day, modding community as well. So what we're going to be doing is starting a new game, and hopefully this will start kickstart a new series as well on OpenTTD. And yeah, it's obviously a very sandbox style game, so I'm not going into it with any sort of goals in mind. We're just gonna see where it leads us and take it from there. Basically, it's very open-ended. So let's go ahead and start a new game. So the setup I'm going for is pretty much as you see on the screen right here. Map size of 4096 by 2048. Land generator is Terragenesis. Terrain type is flat. Variety is low. Smoothness is very smooth. Rivers, medium amount of rivers. Starting in 1900 rather than the default 1950, just to extend the series somewhat. Town names will be English because of course that is what I'm used to. We'll have a low number of towns, normal number of industries, and the sea level is very low. Now in terms of the GRFs that we have uploaded, ready to go, here we can see the ones that are active for this series. We have the BRT trains, the British rail set, the British station set, modern UK train set, the OpenGFX Big GUI, original vehicles cargo set, FIRS and chip style objects, general UK stuff, UK road vehicles, another UK railway set, UK RS2, the heavy equipment set, cargo tram set, Bob's British buses. We have the FIRS industry replacement set, which is a big thing to have. Extra aircraft and more British town names. Now, if you're not familiar with FIRS, it basically makes the cargo side, the production chains, far more complex. And if we look at the parameters for FIRS, we are using the extreme economy. It just gives you a lot more challenge and a lot more scope in terms of your production chains and what is available to you. So let's just close the that window down. We'll swap that to more British since we're using the GRF, and that will obviously just use British town names on the map, and we can go ahead and get started and we'll generate the world. As I said, we're starting in 1900, so we do have to be careful of elevation changes because we don't have the most powerful locomotives to start with, and sudden gradient changes or steep gradient changes over a short distance can really kill the momentum of your trains and cause huge slowdowns. So that's something we're going to have to bear in mind. My plans are for the startup, we'll look for some pretty direct industry chains first of all, oil to petrol and so on and so forth, or coal and iron to a steel mill, that sort of thing, provided that we're not travelling halfway across the map to complete the chain. And what we'll also do is in a few of the towns that might be nearby, we'll look to set up some bus links, I think, to start with, before dipping our toes into the passenger train side of things a little bit later on. So we'll just let this world generate. It's obviously taken a little while because there's a lot to generate. Oh, we're nearly done now. And then we can see what the map has provided us and find a nice little starting place. Now what I'm going to do is first of all just straight away zoom out Now these are the sort of areas we want to be avoiding initially, because we have these quite steep hills here, here and all over the place. So the first thing we're going to do is just scan the map and look for somewhere a bit flatter, which is going to be a bit more friendly to our early era trainers. Now get over here, look, we can see things tend to be a little bit flatter. What about up here? Some flat area here. Of course, it also depends on what industries we have in the areas. Oh, this looks like a nice place. Big open spaces, a few hills and climbs and drops, but nothing too dramatic. And we have a fair few industries around here as well. So let's just zoom in and find a place to start. So here we have some oil wells. Do we have a refinery nearby? I mean, we could link it to the minimap and look that way if we wanted to. You're not a refinery, are you? No, you're an iron ore mine. Right, so I can't see any oh, we have a refinery down here, but it's a little bit out of the way. Let's just head this way and have another look around. Maybe not. What do we have here? Your glassworks. We probably don't want you straight away. So yeah, just looking for a nice startup industry chain that we can use to bootstrap ourselves as we get started. And we have coal being produced here. Now, is there anywhere nearby that's going to accept this coal? The stockyard doesn't. Now we have coal and iron. Now if we have a steel mill nearby, that would be quite handy, because we could supply the coal and the iron. Are you a mill? No, you're a furniture factory. You're a power plant. What about you? Brickworks. Will you take the coal? And you also need sand and clay. So we have coal, we have clay. Do we have sand? Oh, we do over here at Leatherhead Quarry. So we could bring in coal, sand and clay into Littleport Brickworks. That will then produce building materials for us. Oh, what do we have here? We have clay. Oh, we have sand. Yeah, we have sand and clay even closer. So I think this is where we'll start. We'll bring in the sand, the clay and the coal. Obviously the coal's coming a little bit further away. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. And we'll start producing some building materials. As to where the building materials will go, we'll determine that later. It doesn't really matter. We can make money off the 3 inputs, and that should be enough to get us started nicely. So let's get our first station right here then. So what do we want? Let's go for 3 tracks, and we'll have this orientation. And as long as this industry is inside the catchment area, which we can see with those blue squares, and it can only be, well, it can be as few as 1 square. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any difference. Then it's going to work for us. But I think we'll have it about there. So this is Littleport Valley. Now you may have noticed, if you're familiar with the game, I don't have the trees enabled. Rather than just having them transparent, I just deactivate them entirely. They are still present, but they're just hidden, so they're not in our way. So bringing in the clay, I think we'll probably just use a tram system for that, because it's a relatively short journey. But for now I'd rather focus on getting this coal brought up, because this is the one that's the farthest afield, and in theory the one that should make us the most money per delivery, just because of the distance. Although you do have to be mindful of the distance drop-off element, of course, so we will bear that in mind. And the setup's going to be nice and simple. Just quickly connect those in. Initially we'll go for long stretches of single track, while money is a little bit tighter while we're getting bootstrapped and started up, and then we'll look to perhaps have double track throughout a little bit later on. So we'll put a bridge over the river here rather than demolishing the river, Literally, if you haven't seen it before, you do just blow up the river to allow your train line to pass, but we'll go for the bridge instead. And what we're going to do, just run this straight up into our station by the brickworks, which is just up here. So it's quite an expansive build to start with, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And I think we've probably come in a little bit too sharp there. So what we'll do is we'll just come up the hill to attack the station a little bit more head on. And that's not quite lined up, but that will be. Yeah, there we go. And we'll just have these platforms all connect into the one track, like this. We'll put a couple of passing loops in to start things off, and we'll have fairly large passing loops, so we'll have one there. We'll put the signals in a little bit later. And I think we'll have another passing loop just here. And for the signals, I have left-hand drive on this, so fitting with the UK theme, so that's why our signals are going on the left, like that. And just using the control, click and drag to fill out the entire length with signals. We'll just do the same here, fill it all out, and there, and then make sure you put one-way signals, of course, at the end of each passing loop like that, just so our trains definitely take the route we want them to. So that's that. What we now need to do is get ourselves a depot. So here's our depot. We want one with that orientation so it connects in nicely, just like so. And we can set up, or we can purchase our first train. So how much do you produce per month? 200 tons of coal. Okay, so every month you're going to produce 200 tons. So let's go new vehicle. I think we'll sort these initially for the engine. So let's just have engines only. And we'll sort them by, I think we'll go for tractive effort here. So the best tractive effort is the 060 Ginty. That's 45 miles per hour, and it has a power rating of 373 kilowatts and a tractive effort of 88 kilonewtons. This one, a bit more appealing, I think. The power's up, the tractive effort's down by 10 kilonewtons, but we have much higher speed at 50 miles per hour. So we'll go for the 060 goods. As we can see, it is suitable for freight anyway, so we'll buy that. And then we want coal carrying wagons. So we have three choices: the 5-plank open wagon, the standard medium hopper, and the open wagon. So you take 8 tons, you take 40 tons, and the open wagon takes 5 tons. So if we were to use you take 40 tons. You produced last month 225 tons, so it's increased somewhat. So let's keep that open there, because we basically want to make sure we're not having our train waiting for months and months for a full load. We don't want to overdo it here. So what we'll do is just very quickly, let's go 225, and we'll divide that into 40. So if we go for 6 carriages or 6 wagons, that should get us a full load round about every month. So let's buy that for 5. So a fairly short train to start with, but these can be expanded later on. And on the end we want to put a brake van, so buy that as well. So there we go, nice and simple. Make sure you're retrofitted to take the coal, and we'll use a brown colour. And then for your orders, let's just close that window down. We want you to go to Holyhead Woods. We will rename that a little bit later on to Littleport Valley. At Holyhead you want a full load. At Littleport, unload everything and then head back empty. So you can start your journey. We'll close the depot window down and that one. We'll just keep that open for a moment. Another thing we'll do very quickly is just put some signals down here, which will just marshal things in and out of the platforms, and we'll do the same up here as well. So we can see our train is now at the platform and it is being loaded, currently at 9% capacity, so it's going to take a little while for that full load to be generated, but we can just leave that in the background. In the meantime, what we're going to do is start setting up our train groups to keep everything nice and organized. So the first group we're going to have is freight, so all freight trains will go in this grandfather group, and then within the freight group we want a group for coal trains, which is obviously what we're doing first of all, and then within that group we'll have a grandchild group, and this is going to be for the trains itself running this service. So this is Holyhead, so we'll go HHD forward to, was it Littleport? So LTP. There we go, and then that train, which is this one here, goes into that subcategory there. Eventually we'll have extra subcategories within the freight category, so we'll have stone and iron and all the rest of it, and of course we'll have another grandfather group for passenger trains as well, and that keeps everything organized and tidy, and that's what I like to do. So we can close that down for now, leave that to do its thing in the background. It's going to be a while before it leaves, and we can maybe look at setting up a tram line between the Littleport clay pit and Littleport Valley. I think what we'll do here is just rename this from Littleport Valley to the Littleport Brickworks, and similarly down here from Holyhead Woods we'll put Holyhead Colliery. As we can see, our train has departed. It will have a full load. That's good. So you're going to make us some money when you get over here, but for now let's worry about getting this tramway set up. So what we'll do, we'll have a run in front of the quarry, and we'll have it on a loop, and then you will come down here. Now we need some more money, so let's borrow some money from the bank. Let's get 50,000, and we'll do something similar over here with a loop next to the station like so. We're going to need a tramway depot, so we'll get one of those, and then we want freight tram stations, and let's have 3 across there and 3 across there. Let's just rename this station from Littleport Pit to Littleport Quarry. There we go. So you're the one that produces clay. So let's go here, new vehicles, and we want something that will carry clay. So, and then we'll sort by, let's go by speed. So the Y6040 is the fastest at 22 miles per hour. The tractor effort is obviously important because pulling off from standing start, but because we're not going up any hills, it's not as important as perhaps it may be. So let's go for the Y6040, and we'll buy one for now. Make sure you are taking clay, and have you do that. And again, full load at the quarry, unload everything when you get to the brickworks. Close that down and start you. There we go, 11,000 per coal delivery there. We should have some being stockpiled at the station, 357 tons. So I think we can go ahead and clone that train and have a couple more running down here. So we'll go like that, and we'll control click when we clone it so it shares its orders and send that train on its way. So we've got 2 trains running this line for now. That will be expanded a little bit later on, of course. So we can see our tram has arrived at the quarry and is picking up a full load. It's up to 72%, 75, and so on and so forth. When this tram leaves the quarry, we will clone it, and again we'll control click so it shares orders, set that tram in motion, and here we see it comes out now. Now while they're getting bedded in, we're going to do the same thing we did with our train grouping, And we're going to do this up here now. These come under road vehicles, so we'll also have your buses and your trucks in here. So this grandfather group will be trams, and then subcategory will be freight, and then subcategory once again within freight will be clay, and then obviously the name of this group, which is Little Port, so LPP. So all road vehicles then, these two want to go into there, and that just keeps everything again nice and tidy. Eventually we'll have buses, we'll have trucks. Within buses we'll have, say, inner city and intercity. Within trams, of course, we'll have freight and passengers, and trucks will just be freight and whatever goods they're carrying. And there we go. So those two are happily doing their thing. I didn't see how much that tram earned for a full load, but we'll find out when the second tram arrives, which will be just momentarily as it heads right to the end. So you make us £200. So not a great deal, but it's more regular, shall we say, than the coal, because it's coming obviously a much shorter distance than our trains are having to travel. So we can see the first train has already got back and picked up a full load and is on the way, along with obviously this train right here as well. What I'm going to do now is just put in another passing loop here, because this is quite a long stretch here where it is single track. So let's give them another passing loop. Control click and drag to fill out the entire length with signals, making sure we have the one-way signals at either end. And there we go. So now we have one passing loop, 2 and 3, and I think for the time being that will be more than enough. So as we can see now, at the Little Port Brickworks, the coal is supplied and the clay is supplied. We are not yet supplying sand, which we have over at Bracknell Quarry just over the river, and I think we will ship this in via train rather than road or tram. Now we can't afford, we could borrow the money to do this, but I think we'll just wait a few moments. And what we'd have the station somewhere around here, bridge over the river, have it come down here and then connect in to this bit here. And then because we're having two services running from this junction, what will be this junction, to the station, we may double track from the junction all the way into where the stations separate into the various platforms. So as you can see, back to these trams, we're clearly not keeping up with production, so I think it's probably worthwhile cloning a few more. So we'll go 1, 2, nope, we can't afford to do 3, let's go for 2. And again, we did the control click when we were cloning, so it automatically copies the orders of the tram that we are cloning, so we don't have to worry about setting the orders up. And it will also assign them in the relevant group as well. As we can see, we now have 4 trains in the Little Port Clay Freight Tram service. Likewise in the coal, we have 2 in the Holyhead to Little Port right there. I just realised we had LTP here, but in the trams we call it LPP. LPP sounds like a Spanish PP. Anyway, yeah, so we'll go LTP instead. So there we go. So between our trams, which is going to give us some what you might call, or you might term as, trickle income, because it's only £200 per delivery, and our trains, which obviously give us about 11,000, I think it is, per delivery. Yep, I think we've made a pretty reasonable start, and we've got a relatively healthy backbone to our burgeoning transportation company. Now, there's no towns immediately nearby, and there's no towns nearby that are clustered close together, at least not close enough to warrant, and maybe Altrincham to Cottenham. We could link these 2 roads together and have buses running between these 2, but I was hoping we'd have something a little bit closer. Say, like, if we can find an example anywhere nearby. which I can't, but sometimes you do get, oh here we go, look, this is perfect. Darlington to Poole, that would be perfect for an intercity bus connection between the two. We could still set that up even though it's a little bit further afield from where we're based at the moment, over here between Littleport and Holyhead, but that's fine. What it does mean is when we do start doing passenger networks, if we're going to keep in this area and expand organically rather than hopping all over the map, we'll probably have a train service from Holyhead to Tipton. I think New Hythe is probably beyond our reach at the moment because of the amount of hills that we'd have to climb to get up there. Our trains would run tediously slow to get up the hill. Coming down wouldn't be a problem, of course, because you've got gravity on your side, but heading up that hill we'll have too much slowdown. So I think initially we'd probably go from Holyhead to Tipton, and because they're two fairly decent sized cities, that should make us a fair bit of money. But that's all for the future. We're not doing that anytime soon because, while we can extend our loan facility at the bank, I think I'd prefer to let our company grow on its own 2 feet. For now, let's just have a look at this brickworks, display the chain, and these building materials. We can see all the industries that produce them. So a metal fabrication plant will, a glassworks will, a timber yard will, a cement plant will, and of course a brickworks, because that's what we're dealing with. And it's accepted at a bulk terminal, a hardware store, or a builder's yard. So if we press link to small map, that'll highlight all these industries on this screen, so brickworks, builder's yard, bulk terminal, cement plant, so on and so forth. But what we're not interested in are these on this side, barring the brickworks. Obviously the brickworks, we know where that is. We can see it flashing there in the middle of the mini-map, and it's highlighted red. So what do we want to remove? We want to remove the metal fabrication plant, the glassworks, the timber yard, the cement plant. Yes, that's those 4. So we keep the brickworks, and yeah, we keep a bulk terminal, builder's yard and hardware store. So this will show us where we can ship the building materials to. So hardware stores, we have one in New Hythe, and we also have one in Holyhead. You can see it blinking on the screen there. Bulk terminal, there are none nearby. Builder's yard, we have one outside of Tipton, one outside of Bracknell, and in the southeast of the minimap we can see one at Grantchester as well, and there's one here at Neilston. So this is, all these places are options for where we could ship the building materials to make sure we're making profit down the entire length of the chain. So I'm thinking what we will likely end up doing is shipping them over to either Tipton or Bracknell. Let's just hop over there and have a look at the terrain by both of those towns. So Bracknell is fairly flat. We'd have to cross a couple of rivers, this one here and this one here, and we'd probably come out this way, bend around, cross the river, cross the second river, climb this little hill, and have our station just here, and that would then supply the builder's yard at Bracknell. We also have one at Little Tipton, right here, another builder's yard, but we'd have to climb a few more hills to get here. So I think on balance we'll start shipping the building materials first of all over to Bracknell. So we are producing the bricks or the building materials already. As we can see, if we want maximum production rate, we need to supply all of the required cargoes at least once every 3 months. So we are supplying the coal and we are supplying the clay. So if we want to maximise the output from this industry, we also want to bring the sand in, which is something obviously we have discussed in terms of how we're going to get it brought in. But I think that will all be for a future episode. For now, for just getting started and getting the ball rolling, I think we're in a pretty good position. We're up to 33,000 thanks primarily to our trains. In fact, let's just have a look at our financial screen here. So revenue from trains, we made 55,000 with an operating cost of 7,000 so far this year. We're nearly at the end of 1901, so this is pretty accurate reflection. It might get up to about 9,000 or so, maybe 10. So our trains are going to be profitable. And it also looks like so will our trams. We're just shy of 4,000 profit on our trams with an operating cost of just over 1,000. So far so good. Both of our lines are profitable. Obviously the coal trains as a proportion are more profitable, but that's okay. It's not too much of a problem as long as our trams are making profit as well. That's the main thing, and indeed they are. So the last thing we do before we end, let's just rename our company, shall we? So company name, let's change from Quigley & Co to AP Transport Limited. Why not? And manager name will just keep as E Quigley. New face, let's see, what face do we want? Let's go male. And who do, ooh, yes, Ron Swanson. He's very happy with life. He looks a bit like a geography teacher or a chemistry teacher. There's his twin, but with shorter hair. What else? Oh, well, he's seen some things. Let's see, who do we want? Let's just click a few times and oh no, there we go. You will do. So say hello to Ernest Quigley, our CEO. There we go. So yeah, that's where we'll leave it for the for the starting episode, for episode number 1. As I said, it's not been a spectacular start, but it's solid enough, and we are profitable, which is of course the main thing. With time will come more expansion, of course. What's this? New Foden 5-ton steam wagon. We don't want exclusive rights. That will unlock it a little bit later on anyway. It doesn't really matter having the exclusive rights when you're playing a single player game, because you don't gain any advantage from them. And even when you do take them, in my experience, they are quite unreliable. Not that that's a problem, because, in fact, let's just pause it here. If we go to the settings, and where are we? Where would it be? Vehicles, I believe it is. Is it physics? No. Routing? No. Disasters. I've got disasters off and vehicle breakdown set to none, so we don't have to deal with breakdowns on this episode. Obviously it removes some challenge, but it's just the way I prefer to play it. Perhaps we can put breakdowns on a little bit later, but then you have to factor in vehicles going to the depots from time to time for periodic maintenance, and dealing with the frustrations that breakdowns bring, such as slowdowns on your delivery chain network. So yeah, we'll end it here for today. Pretty good start, I think, for episode 1. Like I said, not the most spectacular of starts, but solid enough, and we're in a position soon to be able to hook in with the sand into here, and then look to expand out down here through to Bracknell. Then we'll have one production chain completed already. Not that that matters, there's no set goal or anything, but at least we're making full profits we possibly can off of this one production chain, and then we can look to expand a little bit more organically. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you'd like to see more, then obviously let me know. I'll at least do maybe 4 or 5 episodes to see what the response is. As I said, it's a game I very much enjoy playing anyway, so it's always a little bit easier to do a series on a game that you enjoy playing, and that is very much the case here. As always, a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters, whose support and generosity is deeply appreciated, so thank you very much indeed. But for now, as always, ladies and gentlemen, all that remains for me to say is, as always, take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.